All right, so this is my source book that I'm using for most of my research on the Book of Two Ways, the so-called Book of Two Ways in ancient Egypt. This is by Wales Sherbini. He translates and gives commentary on the ancient Book of Two Ways, which is the 4,000-year-old Egyptian coffin text, which contains a map of America. So what I found out recently from Ptolemy is that, which I guess I should have already have figured out, or maybe kind of knew on some level, is that America was the prime meridian for the ancient world. Let's see my note that I wrote from the library. So what did I write? Ptolemy's geography. Ptolemy says the western limit of his map is bounded by the meridian drawn through the islands of the Blessed, which is 60 and a half something. I'm not sure if that's stadia or what, or 4 equinoctial hours from the most eastern meridian. So I believe when he says the most eastern meridian, I believe he's referring just to the limits of one particular part of the world, being basically Africa and Europe, and maybe it might include some other regions, but basically, that's a part of the world that is bordered on the east by the Sinai. So, whereas he has, he maps out East Asia and South Asia and all other parts as well. But so this is just referring to the part that he lived in. He was living in Egypt. But it seems, from what I've read, that was basically the prime meridian for all places. Like, basically, he says it's 4 hours. So time, like, basically in the ancient tradition, the day began in the underworld. So I think that this is the same way that the time zones nowadays begin, Christmas Island and Samoa are the first places that each day begins, each calendar day, and each calendar year, etc., is, begins first there and then goes around the world in the planet in a westward direction. So similarly, in the ancient times, the sun was reborn in the underworld, which was America, and that was the beginning of the day, of the calendar day, and it may have been also the ecliptic, according to some Egyptologists. So it, I guess, together with its anti-meridian, which would be the opposite side of the planet, which would run through Afro-Eurasia, that would be. But it's strange. I don't know. It says here, yeah, so there's 4 equinoctial hours from the most eastern Meridian. But like, I think what they did is they divided the planet into time zones. And so in the books of the dead, when it's talking about the different hours, it's describing different parts of the planet. I think the books of the dead were geography, were like the same thing as Ptolemy's geography, just in a different form. But it's interesting. He says the western limit is bounded by the meridian drawn through the islands of the blessed. So the islands of the blessed are America. That's a name for the land across the sea, the underworld, America. But strangely, supposedly geographers interpret it, like modern geographers interpret it as being the Canary Islands, which is weird. So I guess that's why they think that his longitude was off, because they're calculating it from the wrong place. All right, so anyway, I'm going to show some of these maps of America. So this is the most illustrated one, I guess. This was in the coffin of General Seppi. All the books of two ways are all from like Nechin, from the Herod Nome, from Hierakonpolis, Deir al-Barsha Cemetery. I think at least most of them are from Deir al-Barsha and Deir al-Barsha, and there might be some from elsewhere. But anyway, so we see here that when he refers to the meridian drawn through the islands of the blessed, it literally is drawn through the islands of the blessed. So that's this red, reddish kind of, I don't know what color it is, honestly, but it's that, it's the lake of fire in the middle. So we have here, anybody that knows like American geography, here's the Alaskan Peninsula, and this is the shape of the Canadian coast. This is the U.S. coast, West Coast. There is Baja California is shown as another different demon like this one, or different underworld god, but he's very light colored, so it's hard to see, but it goes down to there from California, Baja. We have the Rio Grande de Santiago in western Mexico, Jalisco. This is Lake Chapala near Guadalajara. This is the Rio Grande, the Rio Bravo that separates the U.S. from Mexico, and this little river coming out from it is, forget. Okay, that's I'm not sure if I've fully worked out which river that is, but I've worked out probably which two it's probably one of. So anyway, get the idea. Here's Cuba. It's like a long island, and here's the squatter, kind of more compact Haiti, Hispaniola. This is Newfoundland, shaped like a rabbit, which Newfoundland actually is shaped like a rabbit, if you look at a satellite image of it. And here's the Falkland Islands, and this is the Amazon River. These are the rivers at the base of the Yucatan. These are the Great Lakes right here, all shown as one god, like basically the largest, I guess the largest god except for this god. This god, I think, is the Rio de Plata in Argentina and around there. Like I think it's like a large waterway that connects to other waterways, and it's very large. So, and what else is there? I guess that's most of the deities. Oh, and then this. Oh, this is the Baffin Island, of course. This is Greenland, and this is actually the Chesapeake Bay. So he's holding a. He's the only deity that holds a downward dagger. You know, the other ones usually hold knives pointing up, but his dagger is pointing downwards because it's the east shore of the Chesapeake Bay. Anyway, so that's a little orientation on the map. So it's showing the prime meridian here, and this was where, like, this half of the map, the eastern half, is black because the sun was believed to, I mean, not believed, certainly not by the adepts, but the tradition said, you know, in their kind of mythological tradition, the sun is born here, or like this, like Ra Re. He this seems to be where he rises for each day. Like he only rises once. This is like a planetary day, so it's not, in a sense, it's not like a real day for any particular place. It's just like a all-purpose planetary day, which begins always in the same place. The sun always rises there, and then that's why we have this coast is blue, because it's like illuminated by the newly revived sun god. So the tradition went that in the sunset, you know, this is the Atlantic Ocean. So when Ray is going over the Atlantic from Afro-Eurasia, he is attacked by the ocean serpent Apep or Apophis, and he and then the red from, like, that explains the red from the sunset, I believe, and he kind of you know, he's injured and he's weary at that point, and so he has to get to this place so he can be revived. So I suspect this is where the sunset is supposed to actually happen, because, you know, I think it's focusing on like the land masses in a way. So the sun is basically going from land to land. So he's going like from, you know, Greenland is like he's like land hopping, just like people have done and still do to cross to the next hemisphere, or for whatever reason. Actually, I think this is, you know, like Ptolemy says, the equinoctial. He talks about 4 equinoctial hours. So I believe that the whole planet was divided into 12 hours. And I mean, does that make sense? I mean, I would think the planet should be divided into 24 hours. So I'm not exactly sure what the 4 equinoctial hours are, but I do suspect that this map and Ptolemy's system, his map, they both may be somehow geared towards either the equinox or the a solstice or something like this may be somehow, at least for the time frame and the position of celestial bodies, it may relate to a certain time of year, either a solstice or an equinox or something. But possibly the summer solstice, because I think that would be when the sun would set here. Because Plutarch said that the Europeans would cross over to Greenland, basically. They would cross from Britain, the British Isles, to I think another island, probably the Faroes, and to Iceland, to Greenland, to Newfoundland or Baffin, or etc. And he said that they would travel in the direction of the setting sun of the summer solstice, I believe it was, yeah. The setting sun of the summer solstice. So I think that might relate to this, and that might be why the sun is seen as setting here, because in the summer solstice, I believe, is when the sun sets the furthest north. So anyway, the sun is setting here, Ra is attacked. This is the blood of Ra, this is the sunset. And this is the darkness of, Greenland, of course, is, actually, in the summer solstice, it would be one of the brightest places. So I don't know, maybe this is falling apart, but yeah, certainly in general, it's often a very dark place. But in this tradition, at least, either way, like the sun is basically extinguished at this point. So there's darkness. And then this whole coastline is black, seemingly for that reason. And then, so, the question is then, which route does Ray go to reach it? That's not entirely clear. It seems that potentially he can either go here and reach it, or he can go here and reach it, potentially. But it may even be here, because this part, I think, is not, like this line, I don't think is the actual coastline of America. I think this is more stylized. So this area is basically not mapped. It's just for text. And then here's, the islands. So it may be here, although a lot of maps have a line right here. And it seems to be that maybe that is where Ray, the sun, is supposed to actually rise. I don't know. But you get the idea, like, so the books, like there were ancient books of hours, probably throughout the world, certainly in Europe, even in Christian times, there was like funerary texts, I believe, books of hours, and basically like Dante's Inferno was kind of a book of hours, and it was a geography of the planet. It was, not really, because he didn't really give very many geographical details, but at least it was the outline of a geography of the planet, such as Ptolemy's. So I think like Ptolemy's map is like this. It starts from this line in the center of America, and so this is his line of prime meridian. So it's all of his longitude is based on that, and so this is the reason why they're confused. The geographers are confused about Ptolemy, because I believe he said Africa was quite distant from there, and they think, since they want to believe, or they believe that that the Blessed Isles were the Canary Islands for whatever reason, totally ahistorical, but they decided to believe that. So therefore it throws off their whole system because, of course, the Canary Islands are way across the ocean and off the coast of Africa. So anyway, this so these are the books of two ways. They're in coffins, inside coffins in mostly Deir el-Barsha. So these are later ones. You can see they add details like as they explore more. Like, I don't know. I mean, potentially each coffin, each book of two ways could be the result of a new expedition, because it seems like almost every map, or maybe every map, has certain new details. This one certainly gives more details to the coastlines, like the angles of the coastlines, which are absent from other ones. But the entire coffin text of the Book of Two Ways is, I guess, extends, as far as this. So this is all full of text here, I believe. There's text. So like, technically this map itself is only takes up like a quarter or something of the space. This is one which is flipped around backwards east to west in the same style as the original one, or the kind of oldest map of America, the Hierakonpolis Tomb 100 map, which is, I mean, this is the 5,000, it's like between 5,300 and 5,500 year old from Hierakonpolis. So it's, and this is compared to the Waldseemüller map, which was supposed to be based on Ptolemy's system and seemingly used ancient maps, because no European has known to have been to most of this. Like, all they had seen was supposedly like the Caribbean and maybe part of Florida and like part of South America here or something. They had no, like, there's no record of even whether this was part of Asia, whether, like, supposedly nobody had ever been to the other side of this. So all they knew is that they arrived on this coast here and there's some weird people. So, theoretically, this was still thought to be Asia, not like a separate thing, and certainly not like two separate. I mean, he basically knew the whole, or, the gist of what the Americas are, when the only way he could have known that is from ancient maps and ancient descriptions, because there were no recent explorations that would have uncovered that. But it was Waldseemüller. This is the map that named America. It said America on South America, and then it said Parias on North America. But then once they established for certain that they're both connected by land, they just named them both America. But this map was originally flipped backwards east to west, and I had to flip it the other way, and that's because of the underworld tradition. It's based on the antipodal concept, so it's like up is down, east is west, north is south. That's like part of the religious tradition about that. So I think this is what confused the early redactors, the Hermopolitans, that made the Book of Two Ways, because since this was flipped the other